Okay, welcome to 1FG Archives here on YouTube. This is Just Chatting Volume 13, and we're doing another Q&A with me. Let's get started. All right, so a huge shout out to everybody who is on my Discord that asked the questions this time, with RX Dude 22, Willie Will from Green Slate Gaming, Uber Famicom, ATG Zyler, and Captain Tendos and Cryptzilla. Thank you guys so much for your questions today. Let's go ahead and dive into this. These are all pretty much gaming related, just so you know ahead of time. These are, and again, a lot of these are just opinionated, just for me personally. This is my own personal preference, that kind of thing. So, but anyway, let's go ahead and get jumping into this. First question I have is, what is the biggest game purchase I have ever made? Now, I'm going to break this down into actually two categories because I kind of want to say the two biggest, like an overall, would be my purchases would be for in terms of consoles, and my dedication to those consoles would be the Sega Saturn and then the Sega Master System. Because when I bought my Saturn, I originally, I was like, okay, well, what games do I start with? What games do I want to play? And so I just went, I just looked around, and I had an idea of a few games I wanted, but there were so many other so many games on the console that, I didn't try and I didn't know about, and all that. And I just dove right into it. And it's the same thing with the Master System. I played it for now. I've had it for almost still a little bit less than a year at this point, but I've literally blown up all over the place with the Sega Master System, and I wish I would have, had this thing as a kid. There's just so many good games on it. But in terms of the actual purchases for the actual games, well, I'm actually going to give you my top three, just so you can kind of get an idea over what they are. This would be the first one, Golden Axe Warrior on the Sega Master System. This game is probably worth about $380 now on price charting for complete in box, which is what this is. Um, but I did not pay that price when I bought it originally. A huge shout out to Save and Continue in Santa Clara, who gave me a good deal on this one. Um, but again, that's one of the top purchases I've ever made or had to pay for a game. Next up on the list, Mega Man 8, the Anniversary Collection on the Sega Saturn. This sucker right now is already over $600. Now, again, I didn't pay this amount of money when I bought it. Um, so yeah, this thing has already been a great investment for me. The fact that I was able, and it's complete in box. Um, just to be able to say that I have this thing now, I not my absolute favorite Mega Man game of all time, but to be able to actually have a physical copy of it on the Saturn, um, is pretty cool. I didn't I have played it. I have done a playthrough of it, and all that stuff, but all in all, it's one of the biggest purchases I have made for me personally. And the biggest one I've ever had to do was this one right here, because there were only Panzer Dragoon Saga, because there were only 23,000 copies of these made, and this is complete inbox. This thing goes well over $1,000. Again, I did not pay that much for this. Um, it was under 1,000 that I paid for this. Another actually one I didn't think of and just until now was Magic Knight Rayearth. This one is well, like Panzer Dragoon. I'll get to Magic Knight Rayearth in just a second, but Panzer Dragoon Saga is at least 1,200 to up to 14, maybe even $1,500 for if you're trying to find a physical copy of this nowadays. Magic Knight Rayearth is probably close to about $800 to $1,000. Again, I didn't pay that much when I actually purchased them, because I've had them for a little bit, so they've obviously gone up in price. But it's okay. I'm not. Uh, I've spent a lot of money with the Sega Master System and Sega Saturn over the past couple years, since I kind of was going through this whole Sega craze and everything. If you go back and check my last volume of Just Chatting, I kind of went over my whole experience for the Sega and everything for the past 2 years. So yeah, those are my to answer your question. Those are the top. Those are the top games that I have purchased for the most expensive games I've ever made. The next one I have is if I can only play 5 games the rest of my life, what would they be? I really had to. Obviously, one of them is an easy pick for me, Metroid Rogue Dawn. Um, Probably my favorite game of all time. I have to have that with me at all times. Um, Another one would be I really had to kind of really narrow this down to like in terms of like replay value and how much I really enjoy the game very much. So obviously, yeah, Rogue Dawn was one of them. Um, Fantasy Star Online, actually, for the original one on the Dreamcast. I'm still to this day wanting to still get my character, my original character, up to level 200. I'm trying to. I think I'm like at level 130, so I got a long way to go. But all in all, that would be another game I'd want. Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. I definitely want to keep that one around forever. It's just an absolute blast. But then I was thinking about also like an RPG game that I'd want to throw into the mix. And I really thought about a lot of RPGs, and I know Panzer Dragoon Saga is probably my favorite RPG of all time. But in all fairness, the one that I really, if I were to have an actual RPG that I'd want to take with me, would be Baten Kaitos and the Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean on the GameCube. No joke, I love that one too. It was very beautiful, and the fact that it was card based. You know how you can chain your attacks together and everything. The story was really good. It was and it just looked beautiful. Honestly, it was spread over 2 discs on the GameCube, and then the last game that I really wanted, that I really have to take with me, this one really had to. I I this was almost a no brainer for me. That I didn't once I got Metroid Dawn, Rogue Dawn on my list, and Street Fighter 2, Nights into Dreams on the Sega Saturn. Just the simple fact that you can just roam. Yeah, you're on a time limit and all that stuff, but in all fairness, for the actual game itself, you can just free roam around. Collecting things, trying to get a high score. It just feels like we would have to go back and you know get as much highest score as you can. It kind of gives it. And now I know a lot of people will be like, well, what about like Qbert and what about Pac-Man or something like that? You know, Knights is on a different level in my book, and along those terms, because as much as I love Qbert, Pac-Man, all the old classics, Galaga, and everything, Knights gives you that feeling of that rush of trying to get a high score, but also just being able to just be free. As I said, you're floating around in this whole world, trying to get the collect and get a high score and everything. You get that rush of, because you're against the clock. Can I do another loop? If you go back and you watch my top 25 games of all time for the in the past, when I did Nights into Dreams as my number 9 game of all time, that will pretty much just set everything. The reason why is everything that I put in there. Definitely one I want. That is definitely what would the reason why I would have to include that as one of the 5 games of all that I would have to include. So that's my list for the top for 5 games that I would include with me um, for that. Now let me see here. Okay, so what is my favorite style of controller of any system and why? This one was an easy one because as soon as I don't know if I can get this right here. Can't really see very well, maybe with the light and everything. This is the Sega Saturn version 2 controller. This is absolutely a gem of a controller. It has the 6 buttons, so like the normal Genesis, like 6 buttons on it. It's got the 2 triggers on the top, a start button. It's just great. The only thing that I regret, that I don't like is if I'm playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the Sega Saturn. They had enough buttons on that thing. They could have easily have put the map button as one of their buttons, but you had to actually start. You had to go to the pause menu, press the left trigger, and then it would show you the map of the castle. And it just that was so aggravating to have to be able to do that every single time. But it fits nicely into your hands. It has the 6 buttons all at your capacity. You can always use the triggers if need be. The simple fact that you can play like any of the fighting games, you have all your 6 buttons at your disposal. You don't have to use triggers to do anything, which is why I didn't particularly care for like playing fighting games on like the PlayStation and Super Nintendo and stuff, because you had to use the triggers for your moves. And for me personally, I'd rather have it all on one controller right then and there. Now the Dreamcast was, I wish they would have had the 6 buttons on there too, because they should have, but they wanted to put that VMU and then they cut it down to 4 buttons, and they only had, and with the triggers, and it just wasn't the same. So, but the Sega Saturn controller is my absolute favorite of all time for in terms of controllers. Yeah, the 360 is not bad either, but again, I like having the 6 buttons on the front, and that's what did it for me. Next up, what is my opinion of the different Mega Man collections? This was very easy for me to decide as well, because I actually have physical copies of both of these games on the GameCube, and I'm strongly saying that the ones on the GameCube are the better ones, simply because I'm not sure I'm not 100% sure if all the content's the same, but because I haven't actually really researched it much. But in my opinion, on all these, you've got the Mega Man X collection, which actually, if you unlock, if you play all 6 of them, you unlock a 7th game on here, which is the Battle and Chase, which is a racing game. It's a Mega Man racing game. Not a very good racing game, but it is very challenging and it is fun. Um, but you get all 6 of all the ones all the way up to PlayStation 2, with the Mega Man. I'm sorry, the PlayStation games with Mega Man X 1 through 6. You got them right here on your at your disposal. And then the other collection that I really absolutely love on the GameCube is the Mega Man Anniversary Collection. This one's actually fetching a decent price, as far from my understanding. I could be wrong. I haven't actually looked it up recently, but you get 10 Mega Man games in this. You get 1 through 8, all the way through, and then you get the Power Battles, which were like the quote unquote fighting type games for the Mega Man series. So they were only released in the arcades, if I remember correctly. But it was pretty cool to actually. I've been always been wanting to like play those things, and there they are. You get them at your disposal, and you have to unlock 7 and 8, I think, and the Power Battles over time by completing the different Mega Man games and everything. But overall, it's actually it's a really really good collection. But one thing to note about the anniversary collection is that if you buy, or if you're playing it rather, you're going to need to swap the buttons, because it has the A button on the GameCube controller is your fire button, or I'm sorry, the B button's your fire button, which is the little tiny one, and the A button is the jumper, and you can swap those two, whichever, because if it kind of gives you the feeling of like, if you imagine playing on an NES controller, but the buttons are reversed. That's what it feels like when you first plug in that game, and that's going to screw you over a lot. But you can actually swap the buttons so that it's just like playing on a NES controller. So the B button's the fire, A is the jump, and all that stuff. So anyway, that's what I think. Those are the collections are the best ones. Not to say anything against like the ones like the legacy collections that they have on Switch or PlayStation or Xbox. Those things you can buy online, and their respective eShops, type of thing. Um, the Legacy Collection number 2 had like 7 through 10, and then the first one had 1 through 6. Yeah, and they do have the X collection, I think, as well on there. But these ones here, I think, were the best ones for the series, and at least that's my opinion. Moving on, let's see here. What video game purchases do you regret? Immediately off the top of my head, when I saw this question, I already thought of 3 games. One, Record of Lodoss War on the Sega Dreamcast. One of the worst MMO type games, and it was single player. It was just awful. It was them trying to be like they tried to make a like a Diablo ripoff, type of thing, or whatever you want to call it. And I played that sucker for probably, really, really tried to get into it, but I just couldn't. The simple fact that it's like when you're, especially, well, the one thing that I can remember about the game to this day that really stuck in my head is that when you're running around on the playing field, if you have loud boots, you hear them as you're walking. So you can hear like normal footsteps with like regular shoes and stuff like that. But if you had like iron boots on or something, like I mean, it came like pound, 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 pound. I, I got so sick of hearing that like so quick, and I was dying because I was like that was the only armor upgrade I had at the time or something like that, and things just kept doing a lot of damage to me, and I was just like, dude, I had to take the boots off. I there was nothing I could do because it was just so aggravating to have that noise constantly as you're just running through stuff, and I'm just it and the whole hit aspect, like the contact and everything when you're slashing and stuff, it was off. It seemed really off to me. The controls weren't exactly the easiest to like figure out. Um, but yeah, that one's definitely one of the ones I absolutely regret. Another game that was also on the Dreamcast was one called Silver. I kind of liked the story of it, and I kind of because it was simple and everything. The play mechanics were kind of cool, but overall, it was these little dinky little characters that you're running around and everything. It was making it hard to judge things. You had your weapons could break and things like, and you'd have to get new your shields and everything could break. It just wasn't it was okay, but I ended up having to return it. I didn't get I did end up getting through the entire game just because I wanted to try it out, see what it was about, and I was actually someone, but those little minuscule little tiny things on the screen, it made it so hard to play. I had to keep coming back to it, and eventually, once I finished it, I was just done. I sold my copy, and to this day, I kind of regret selling it because it's actually supposed to be worth a little bit of money. But regardless, whatever. The last one that I want to mention that I was kind of disappointed in was Immortal Kombat Trilogy on the Sega Saturn. Um, I there was just a lot of things in terms of like the controls and everything. I when I originally bought the game, and this was within the past few months, and I tried it out, and I have a first impressions of it here on the channel as well. It was very impressive for the most part, but the thing that really caught me the most was the shadows. And I don't know if that's just because that's just the processor of the Saturn or how it processes the environments and everything. But my God, that looked terrible, and that just bugged the crap out of me. The more and more I go back and I've watched that video a couple times. Oh man, it was not worth the price tag that I paid for it. That's all I can say. Because I have a copy of that game on N64, and I also have it on PlayStation 1. And I was like, no, it's a Saturn, it's on the Saturn. I want to be able to, but it's actually a pretty rare find. So if you can find one, it's probably going to be up there in price. But honestly, I don't think it's worth it. It's I mean, I'm still gonna play it from time to time and everything, just like I do with other stuff. But Record of Lodoss War and Silver, I returned both of those games right away. At least with Mortal Kombat trilogy, it's not like it's absolutely horrible where I just like, but I just have to get that mindset saying like, hey, if just remember when you're playing the Saturn version, those shadows and everything, they look god awful. It just looks cheap. It doesn't even look right. And the price that I paid, and I only got the disc of it too, which was kind of disappointing to me, but it's okay. I'll keep it. I'm not going to sell it, probably, most likely, but if I do, well, then so be it. But those are the top three those will be the top three games that I regret ever purchasing. All right, so moving on. Next question. What game or system did you initially not enjoy when you were younger that you enjoy now, and what changed it? That is pretty simple for me as well. I would have to say the Sony PlayStation 1 and 2. I did have a little bit of love and respect for it growing up and stuff because my brothers had them. But I never really was a fan, to be honest. I mean, there were some games I saw, it's just like, eh. They all look kind of like it's kind of like this action adventure type of stuff. But I missed I don't know if it's just that a fact that I missed like the old school, pixelations or the pixel arts and stuff like that I grew up on. Everything was now polygons and 3D environments, and it just didn't really do anything for me. But however, that being said, these last couple years, I've actually probably invested a little bit into my PlayStation and PlayStation 2 1 and 2 collections because there are some games out there that I remember my brother playing that I'd actually like to get my own, you know, do for the channel, you know, and for the page. Like Shinobi, maybe Nightshade, just to name a couple of them. Um, I've done a few things like Gradius 5. I've done Castlevania Chronicles, Symphony of the Night. I've done all those the classics and stuff like that. But there's more games that I kind of want to get more involved with. The Mega Man X series, the originals on the PlayStation. You know, there's a whole bunch of them that I just want to be able to get back into. And I actually just recently found Gradius 3 and 4 on PlayStation 2, where it was a all-in-one disc, you know, type of thing. So it's definitely my Devil May Cry is another one that another series that just popped in my head right now, that I'm wanting to jump into. Probably gonna play the first one more so than anything, because I heard the second one wasn't that great, but the third one was supposed to be pretty good. I know my brother played Devil May Cry 3 and really liked that one a lot. So like I said, there's a lot of series on the actual console that I really do want to get myself into. Another one that I really like is Champions of Norath, Return to Arms, the original and the second one. So you know, it's a lot of fun. You know, I've really grown to actually have a little more respect for Sony these past couple of years, especially now that since I'm part of the Retro Gaming League. And I've been exposed to a little bit more of these games, so it's kind of gotten my changed me a little bit in terms of what the Sony was all about. So that's how I feel about those, in terms of like what system I didn't enjoy and then now I do a little bit more. Next question: have you ever destroyed something out of anger? In terms of gaming, yes, I have. Nothing too serious. I've rattled a few controllers before, much like probably most people have. But if you remember the NES Max console, or controller rather, back in the day, that had the turbo buttons and everything, when we bought that sucker, actually it was my brothers paid for that with their own money, and I ended up having to reimburse them for it. I smacked the heck out of that controller because, I mean, being a kid and everything, you know, I ended up having to replace that thing. That thing just turned into junk. I kept smacking it against the ground. I'd smack it, you know, like around and everything, and then all of a sudden the controller stopped working as well. The buttons weren't being responsive. The little D-pad wasn't working right. So it, you know, I had to end up having to replace it. You could hear the little plastic things rattling around inside the controller. Yeah, they were not happy when that happened. You know, and as I said, I had to replace that controller. So yeah, I have. We all have. We've all done it. Now, have I done anything recently? Not so much. I have a little more respect for my controllers and what all my, especially my consoles, my games, and everything. You know, if I start feeling the rage or something like that, I have actually a thing on the side here of my in my game room where I'll just pound it, you know, type of thing if I get mad, and I always have to pull myself together, you know, to try not to make sure I don't throw. But if I ever like thrown a controller or anything like that, no, I don't. I pound, I hit stuff with the controllers and stuff, but yeah, I don't. I've never tossed a game. I've never tossed a controller. None of that stuff. You know, broken a console, broken a monitor. Yeah, none of that stuff. But yes, I have broken a controller before. So there's your answer. Let's see. Next one. What video game or video game series, excluding Metroid, shaped me into to what I like to play today? Honestly, growing up as a kid, our family had all the classics: Castlevania, Mega Man, Metroid, all of those. Kirby. Well, Kirby actually was kind of my own thing, but and I kind of went off on tangents on other like series and stuff like that. I had it's just the variety, you know. This is what I grew up with. We had all of them. Legend of Zelda, the originals and stuff, and we were always looking forward to like the new ones that were coming out in the future and all that goodness. But you know, I'm not really, I don't know. I just got really familiar with them, and I played them over and over again, which gave me a lot of skill, you know, to play different platformers and stuff where someone it might take them a little bit longer than normal to like, because they're not used to like this format or something like that. For me personally, I'd basically just be able to pick up stuff. You know, if you watch any of these uh past streams and stuff like that for the Retro Gaming League this past season, you'll know for a fact that a lot of these games I make, and I get told this over and over again, where I say, "Hey, you're making this look hella easy." You go back and watch my Ninja Gaiden 3 or Ninja Ryukiden 3, The Ancient Ship of Doom on the Famicom. I did a no death run on my official run. You know, and I was like, "Oh man, you're just making this look easy." Honestly, I part of that has to just be because I'm a variety streamer, and just the stuff that I've constantly like, you got to pound this stuff into yourself, But these are the games that we had growing up as a kid, so I'm just familiar with them. I'm familiar with the format. I'm familiar with, um, there's just so many varieties out there that just shaped me into what I am today, and I think that's why I'm pretty good at a lot of these games. Just having the variety out there, it's because this is what I grew up with. I'm not going to say anyone in particular that it was actually that actually shaped me into what I am. It was all of them, to be honest. I can't really pinpoint to what it actually is. So hopefully that's a good enough answer for you for that one. And then lastly, let me see here. What was my favorite port and why? There's two, and both of them are on the SNES, and they're both fighting games. So which surprisingly, I didn't really. There was a lot of arcade ports and stuff like that from different, consoles and everything else. But Mortal Kombat 2 and Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting, both of those games were absolute masterpieces, in my opinion. That they ported when they ported them over to the home console, the sound effects on Mortal Kombat 2, the sound effects on Street Fighter, both of them, and the visuals and everything, the sound effects, everything was just really well done. In fact, I can even remember, I think GamePro was one of the magazines. They gave like Mortal Kombat 5 across the board, um, compared to the Genesis one and all that. It there was so much stuff that they did right with both of those. And the thing that killed it for me with the Genesis version was the voice acting. It was absolutely terrible. The music was the sound, the music. It was just. I mean, they tried to make it close to the arcade and everything, but my gosh, it sounded so awful on the Genesis. I try jumping back on it every now and then to see if I can just and I'm done after like one playthrough. I have to switch over to the SNES version just simply because I just can't put up with the sound anymore. That's just me personally, but it's I just can't put up with that sound. It's really just gargly. And I even had there was even a remake that someone didn't fix it. Honestly, didn't do it. I was watching another YouTube video that did a review for it. It was like I think it was like Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition remastered or something like that. I forget the name of the actual game, but it had remastered in it, and it still had the same gargly voices and stuff when for Hadoukens and everything. It was, ugh, no, it just was not the. It just wasn't the same. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't. Um, I don't know. But the Super Nintendo versions of both of those fighting games just blew me away. I want to say absolute perfection, but pretty close to it, for a home console version, especially being a 16-bit port. Those things were spot on. I don't think they could have really done anything better for those. I still play them to this day. Versus the arcade, if I'm gonna play them just for the nostalgic factor, I will play it. I actually have Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting, Turbo Hyper Fighting on the SNES and Super Famicom. Just so I own both copies of it. I can play on both consoles. I actually have a little adapter that I use for my SNES that I can use to play Famicom games. So, um, it is quite interesting. Uh, and actually, I want to touch back real quick on that other question that said like what game or video game series that actually no wait, there was another someone had asked one other thing that someone had asked me was like what, oh no, hang on, I missed one question, my apologies. Is that which game, basically it's like which game or actually wait, where is it? I think I read one of the questions wrong, hang on. My apologies. No, but okay, what's the game or system? What game or system you initially did not enjoy as a kid? Okay, the game that okay, so I told the systems. I didn't go off on the game. I knew I was leaving something out. So that was an easy choice for me because it's actually now one of my top 10 games of all time, and that's this one right here. I did not enjoy this game at all my very first playthrough, and if you go back and you watch my top 10 games of all time where I review Sonic CD, that will give you my entire reason why. The more I've played this game, the more I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I actually just streamed it just recently over on Twitch, and I uploaded the Twitch stream over to here to YouTube. I every time I one of these days I'm gonna actually go through and see if I can just do the enemy generators instead of just going for the time stones to try to get the best ending. But I was able to actually get all 7 time stones on the first 7 levels, which I've never been able to do before. So that was quite the accomplishment. But I still actually haven't even found all the enemy generators in every single level. So, but that's okay. You know, that gives me something. But see, that gives me something to replay value to go back and play Sonic CD, you know, and all that. But originally, when I played this game, I absolutely hated it. I was like, my God, I'm so happy to be through this game. But there was something that just drew me back into it. And when I went back and I played it again, I began to understand what it was trying to do, you know, and I didn't need an explanation of it whatsoever. I mean, I understand the past, future, you know, different things, and it just made a huge difference. You know, the more and more I played it, the one thing I will say that the only thing that I really didn't really care about that game was the jumping sound. But other than that, I didn't really care. It that actually didn't bother me a whole lot. I think the addition of Amy was a little bit cute. You know, just a little, just something to have a little Sonic to have a little potential girlfriend, you know, type of thing. I thought that was kind of cute that they added her to it. It's sadly you didn't see her until I think what Sonic Adventure again, so that's okay though, you know, because then she was a play. Eventually, you can unlock her and do her, have her part of the story. You know, do her levels and everything. So it was a cute little addition. But Sonic CD was definitely one that I did not enjoy. In fact, the first time I was able to play it was on the GameCube off of the Sonic Gems collection. No, I'm sorry, the Sonic uh, Mega Sonic collection on the GameCube, and I just was I yeah I it just was like pulling teeth for me to get through that game. I kept dying. I kept, you know, there was just so it's very it's not the easiest Sonic game to get through. In fact, like if you're going through like the level Wacky Workbench, and I will straight up acknowledge this part. Wacky Workbench is one of the worst zones ever in a Sonic game. Just hands down, it is one of the worst, but it's okay because it's a challenge. It's the challenge of having to be able to keep your rings, find the enemy generators, finding ways in order to get to the past, in order to find that generator, to destroy it, make a good future, and all that stuff. That that's what it's all about to me, though. As much as I hate that level, but once you have the if you have all the time stones by then, you're just trying to blitz through it. It's actually not one of the easiest levels to try to blitz through. So just a fair warning. But anyway, so that's what I have for today for the Q&A. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I will be doing another one of these in the future, down the line. I don't know when, but if you want to join my Discord, it is over on on the Twitch side rather. My link to it is over there. Just to follow me at twitch.tv/OneForsakenGaming. You can also find me at facebook.com/OneForsakenGaming, and as well as Instagram, and of course right here at 1FG Archives here on YouTube. But that's going to be it for this episode of Just Chatting. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the Q&A, and we will see you next time.